Good afternoon, Mr. Davis.
Good afternoon, Robert. So I hear you're interested in applying for a position at our lie detector construction factory. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Good, good. Take a seat.
But sir, there aren't any chairs.
Very good, Robert. Please, have a chocolate mint.
No thank you, I'm allergic, sir.
Take the mint, Robert.
No thank you, sir, I can't eat chocolate.
Robert, my time is precious. If you don't think you can handle this job, I suggest you leave the office immediately.
Sir, if I eat that, I'll die.
Take the mint, Robert.
Okay. Thank you for the mint, sir.
Excellent choice, Robert. So, you're interested in applying for a spot in management. Why is that?
Well, sir, I've been with the company for many years now, and I feel it's time for me to actually move up the corporate ladder.
Have you ever been in a leadership position?
Well, sir, I would often assume the managerial duties while the branch manager was out, and I feel like I'm ready.
Alright, very good, Robert. Tell me a little bit about yourself now.
Oh, well, I was born in Burbank, where I lived with my parents, until they tragically passed away in a car accident when I was 4. After that, I was sent to live with my grandparents in Serbia. I lived with them for a year, but they too passed away in a car accident. Damn that awful German engineering. I then went to a boarding school from the age of 6 and lived there until I was 30. I ended up falling in love with one of the caretakers there, and we were married 3 years ago. We had a beautiful baby girl a year after we were married. And once our daughter Ambrosia turned 1, we decided to adopt a Welsh Corgi. But 2 months after adopting the dog, it somehow got rabies and bit our daughter. Ambrosia died that month, and we had to put the dog down. And then yesterday, I went into the doctor's for an annual checkup, and found that I had an extremely rare disease, and that treatment for it is extremely expensive. That's why I'm applying for this manager position, in order to pay for the treatment.
Oh, great, that's terrific. Alright, now, Robert, if you had to guess, how many marshmallows could I fit in my mouth? Answer carefully.
Sir, I don't understand the validity of such question in an interview like this.
Answer the question, Robert.
If I had to guess, 5, sir?
Alright, Robert, how bad do you want this job? How committed are you?
Well, sir, I really need this job. I have
If you had to kill a man for this position, would you?
Sir, what kind of question is that?
It's the one I'm asking, Robert. Would you kill a man?
No, sir. I wouldn't kill a man for this position.
Have you ever been arrested or incarcerated, Robert?
No, sir, but that's blatantly against the law to ask me that question.
You're right, Robert. I apologize. We're getting off track a little bit here. So tell me, have you ever been convicted of theft, murder, abduction?
I can't believe you would even assume I would do any of those things, so no, I have not.
Yes, assumption is a man's best friend. Speaking of men, have you ever been a woman? Take a mint, Robert.
Sir, I'll die.
What's your favorite religion, Robert? Do you believe in ghosts, Robert? How do you feel about women? How do you feel about men? Should white people get paid more than any other people? Robert, would you be okay with turning polytheistic for the good of the company? At what point do you stop taking orders from the opposite sex? Are you or have you ever been the opposite gender? Was your daughter pretty, Robert? Am I pretty, Robert? Do you smell that, Robert?
No, sir.
That's the smell of fear. Do you fear for your life, Robert? How many jumping jacks do you think I can do? Would you give me money if you saw me on the streets? If I gave you $14 right now, would you buy drugs?
Sir, this is a horrible interview. I don't even care about the job anymore. I'm leaving.
Robert, wait, please, no, this company needs you. I have one more question. If you answer this final question correctly, it guarantees a spot for you in management. What do you say, Robert?
What's the question, sir?
Robert, I just want you to answer this one question for me. How honest are you?
Like on a scale of 1 to 10?
No, really, just how honest are you?
What does he mean? I don't understand. Does he want a number? How can I answer this right? Does he want me to say I'm honest and then think I'm lying? Does he want me to lie and say I'm not honest? What do I do? Help.
I wonder how he's going to answer this, because if he says that he's honest, then I'm going to think he's totally lying and that he's going to be dishonest, and I'm not going to hire him. But if he says he's dishonest, I'm not going to hire him because he's dishonest. Oh boy, I hope he thinks of some creative response that I can totally shoot him down and just offer him another chocolate mint. God, I love my job.
Sir?
Robert?
Sir, I can't answer that. I mean, I can say I'm honest, but I don't know if you'll believe me, and then if I say I'm dishonest, I won't get the job, so I don't know what to tell you. It's not like I can just put a numerical value on honesty, so I hope you can trust me that I'm good for this job.
That was beautiful, Robert. But you didn't answer the question, so you're dismissed. Goodbye, Robert. You're done here. No, honestly, really, your daughter deserved to die. I hate you.
Hello everyone, my name is Nick Parsons, and this is Colton Teagarden. Say hi, Colton.
Hello.
Today we're going to be discussing the knowledge question, to what extent is objective honesty possible, through the video that you guys just watched. But before we begin, there's a few key terms we must describe, so let's go to those. Okay, first of which being objective. Objective meaning not influenced by personal feelings or opinions. Objectivity is analyzing something without any sort of personal factors. It's what's usually commonly accepted. The opposite of which being subjective, influenced by personal feelings, thoughts, opinions, or mood. Subjectivity is where personal opinions usually come from, and that's where things get complicated when people disagree. Honesty has many different definitions, but for the sake of this presentation, we are defining honesty as lacking deceit to both oneself and others. That's pretty self-explanatory. The same thing with truth, many definitions, but here we define the truth as that which cannot be objectively disputed, cleverly using the word objective in the definition of truth, which we already defined. Alright, let's get started.
So guys, that scene you just saw with Robert and Mr. Davis, it was a dramatization of the unfair interview process that actually took place for an Ethernet provider company called Allied Telesis. In the interview, the interviewer asked a potential employee, "How honest are you?" To me, this seems like it would be an awful question to be asked during a job interview. I mean, because how would you respond? I mean, you can try and say that you are honest and hope the interviewer believes you, but the interviewer could also quite easily think that you're only telling them that you're honest because that is what they want to hear. From this viewpoint, it would seem that you are being dishonest just to get the job. But if you answer that you are dishonest, well, why would they want to hire you? So all of this, in turn, leads to the knowledge question. To what extent is objective honesty possible? So now, guys, I want you to take, for example, a parent telling a small lie to their child. They might tell their child that Santa Claus exists in order to preserve their child's love for Christmas and their childish innocence and not expose them to the truths about Santa Claus. If lies like these little white lies, are the only lies that these parents tell, they would have a very easy time justifying that they are honest. I mean, most people would probably agree that even though they tell a little lie here or there, they're still honest people. But on the other hand, if you have someone who lies to everyone about everything, they would still probably tell themselves they are honest, and that would justify to themselves that they are an honest person, and to them, they are honest. And from this viewpoint, it's very clear that honesty is extremely subjective, and the definition of honesty will change from person to person.
Now, language is a highly integral way of knowing in the field of communication, because humans have the remarkable ability to ask questions, using words to make other words, and that's how we get knowledge. Super cool. The process is composed of using specific arrangements of words to seek answers composed of other words, ones that already exist in the scope of the universe, but not in the context of the question. So what does that mean? Well, okay, in my experience, for example, I found that the question, "Hi, how are you?" is used as a conversation starter, is typically considered by the English-speaking society as a completely acceptable means of conversation, and is what could be described as probably an honest question. Because when someone asks you that, you don't think they're up to something, no one thinks it's abnormal, but through the years it's been just turned into something that really means nothing. It's used, it's thrown around, and people don't really have any desire to find out how you're feeling. If you think about it, the giver of the question is in no way, shape, or form truly determined to find out how the receiver of the question is feeling, and may not even register the response after the question has been posed. When I'm asked the question, there appears to be no underlying motive for the question being asked. There's only one clear and obvious type of response that warrants the conversation to move on. However, in order to really judge the validity of the question's honesty, you have to understand that there is both, in every question, there is a blatant and latent motive in the asking of the question. In this example, even being asked the question as simple and harmless as this, the neutral or apparent verbal response would be replying anything along the lines of, "I'm doing well," "swell, dandy," "how about yourself," that kind of thing. Both the interrogator and the interrogatee would move on with their lives, never again pondering the very traditional and culturally relevant exchange of dialogue that they just had. This in turn does not leave any room for interpretation. The question is perfectly unbiased and well. But the latent answer that people are truly seeking when they're asking this question is not simply the verbal response. The answer is the social validity and the affirmation of the verbal exchange itself. There's so much more by responding to the question good and well, that's what they wanted to hear to complete the exchange, and that establishes normalcy in any relationship between two people. That creates an image of both you and this person as functioning members of society, using the medium of words, but the words you say really mean nothing. It's just a cookie-cutter response, and that's what's so interesting about communication. There's so much more than meets the eye. There's subconscious attempts to establish this self-image and create this normalcy. So due to the fact that the desire for this image far outweighs any genuine interest in finding out how your subject feels, asking this question is therefore completely dishonest to yourself, simply because the verbal interaction sought an answer that doesn't mean it seeks knowledge. Which leads us to ask the first knowledge question that we have in this presentation, besides the title. To what extent can a question be valid if it does not seek to find any knowledge? And by very definition, there is no question that does not seek at least some form of an answer, so therefore there can be no purely objective, honest response to any question, really. The unfair barrage of questions from Mr. Davis are, in the video, are much to the same effect, not seeking any obvious knowledge from poor Robert. They are rather designed to confuse and undermine the interviewee in order to make him appear less competent than he probably is, further proving how dishonest the questions he asks really are. Robert responds respectfully, obviously, and wishes, and with much objective truthfulness as possible, but it is in vain, because Mr. Davis isn't really using anything with the information he's given. Poor Robert becomes the fallen tree in the forest that no one heard.
Now, I want you to imagine someone who grew up never knowing what the shape of the Earth was. They lived for years and didn't know that the Earth was in fact a sphere. Then one day, somebody they trusted told them that the Earth was a cube. They would, of course, accept this statement as true because they had no reason to believe they were being lied to and had no outside knowledge of the subject. If the person then tells someone else that the Earth is a cube, without knowing the fact, without knowing that it is in fact actually false, is this person then being dishonest? I mean, they believed that the Earth was actually a cube because they trusted the person that told them, but they had no outside knowledge to refute this claim. To them, they're being completely honest because they aren't trying to deceive someone with this fact. But now imagine if this situation was flipped. If someone uses a true fact to deceive someone, is that being honest? If someone who knew that they were a horrible driver, but said they were a phenomenal driver because they never received a ticket, people would probably believe their claims. But then all of a sudden it comes out that they have only been driving for 3 weeks. Are they all of a sudden dishonest because of this? They did in fact use a true statement that they have received no tickets, but it was used in a way to deceive the person they were telling it to. Previously in the slideshow, we defined honesty as lacking deceit to both oneself and others. In this case, the driver in question is obviously trying to deceive people by only using part of the truth. This would mean that they are being dishonest to others, but then what if the driver fully believes that they are phenomenal? They just don't have the record to prove this. Now, from our definition of honest, the driver is being honest to themselves because they are not attempting to deceive themselves. Even if the driver is still horrible, they believe they can drive well and have no attempts to deceive anyone.
Okay, so it's important to note that job interviews are supposed to be, for the most part, formal, respectable, polite, and Mr. Davis in the video's crass, unruly behavior is not only a depiction of how dishonest questions can be asked via the paradoxical enigmas in language and complex subtleties and the odd endeavor of human communication, but also as the reason as to why certain types of questions have been made illegal to ask during job interviews, as was observed with the question Mr. Davis asked on incarceration and being arrested. We mentioned earlier that objective honesty and objective truth are different depending on the knowledge of the speaker, and that an honest opinion is too much of a paradoxical phrase to seek truth. But the reason why the trigger question of how honest are you is so difficult to answer is because it has an infinite amount of incorrect responses. And any possible correct answer would only be true to certain people. So if one were to look at a coffee mug, for example, a blue coffee mug that is sitting on a counter, you could ask around people and you could ask them what color the mug is. And someone who is colorblind might say that the mug is purple or green or some dark shade of gray. An apathetic teenager might think that the mug is kind of blue, I guess. You know, a poet might say that the mug is as blue as his mother's tears when dad left home for good. The father, who left home, might think that the color doesn't matter because the sun made it for him when he was in first grade, and it means just the same. A blind person might be upset that he even agreed to answer the question in the first place. These are all completely valid answers. My point being that there is an infinite amount of responses that aren't just, it's blue. But all of the responses are equally valid because they are objectively true to at least one person, thus making the overall objective truth non-existent. So long as at least one person believes otherwise, this whole truth can't be determined. It doesn't exist. All one can do in the job interview situation is answer honestly to these types of questions. So this confirms sort of that the objective truth and objective honesty cannot exist, because they're largely determinant on one another, and because everyone has different opinions, and they're all indeed very, very different. The video uses the chocolate mint as a symbol for the opinions of others. Every time Robert says something that is not genuine or too commonplace, such as the introduction, Mr. Davis would offer him a chocolate mint. He does this multiple times throughout the interview, and this is clearly indicative of how every time a general theme comes up for discussion, people start giving you their thoughts and opinions on the matter. Even if you didn't want them, even if you didn't ask for them, as Robert clearly did not. But no matter how strongly you defend your chocolate mint in society, people will never agree that you have the chocolatiest, mintiest chocolate mint. They'll just give you theirs. That being said, the allegorical objective chocolate mint cannot exist, because even in a literal sense, if you asked a group of individuals to picture a chocolate mint candy in their minds, it's highly unlikely that they thought of the same image. It's different. It could have been round, it could have been square, it could have been a minty M&M. It's all different, so objective truth can't exist.
When you look back at everything discussed, it seems that objective honesty is truly not possible. Honesty is completely dependent on the situation and the people involved. If in an interview you were asked, "How honest are you?" it would be best to tell the interviewer that this is an extremely subjective question, and it will not actually tell the interviewer how well you will fit into the job. Being honest to one person, what that means is really not the same thing as being honest to another person. Like in the case of the interview between Robert and Mr. Davis, there were many questions in which Mr. Davis asked that he did not expect an honest answer from Robert. In a real interview, questions like these would almost always lead to the applicant lying, because that is the fact what in fact, what the interviewer would like to hear. The scenario between Robert and Mr. Davis really helps reinforce the validity of the laws that the U.S. has in relation to questions that are illegal to ask someone during an interview. So, it looks like objective honesty is not possible. Thank you.